Let's also take a look at shares of HP Inc. That company's revenue missing estimates here. $3.19 billion was the first quarter net revenue number. $13.58 billion is what analysts had been anticipating. And the company's second quarter forecast of adjusted earnings per share of 76 to 86 cents compares with the 82 cents that analysts had been forecasting here. But it seems like that sales miss is to blame for the drop in the stock. In addition to that, first quarter free cash flow at only $25 million versus the $1 billion that analysts have been anticipating. That's a bit of a head scratcher. So we'll dig into that a little bit further. But effectively what you have here is that PC sales are still relatively weak here. So that revenue figure is down 4.4%.
Yeah, it'll just be very interesting to see what the company says about the PC market now and looking ahead. What's the demand environment like? What's pricing going to look like? There are some folks who've been betting on a PC recovery.
Yeah.
And remember, of course, you got to talk printing. Ink and toner, I know, not the most riveting topic, Julie Hyman, but critical for this company. So also what the company sees there, print consumer, print commercial will be very important.
It looks like printing was kind of in line with estimates. It's where the actual PC sales came in that disappointed.
Yep. For more on this, Yahoo Finance's very own Brian Sozzi did catch up with HP's CEO Enrique Lores to go over the numbers.
Enrique, earnings came in fairly well, and I think that says a lot about how your team continues to manage costs. But talk to us about why sales in the computing business and the printer business, why did they decline in the quarter?
I think I would say we had a solid quarter in Q1, and both the decline on revenues was really driven by what we see from a market perspective, but internally we are executing well. We grew share in PCs, which you know is the major driver of revenue. So from an execution perspective, we do well. I think what is also important to highlight is that we continue to expect the PC market to grow in 2024. We expect the second half of the year to be stronger, and we are well positioned to ride that growth when it will come.
What is it about those market dynamics, Enrique, that you just mentioned that is putting pressure on volumes of PCs and printers?
Well, what we have seen is that demand has slowed down. I think it's driven by the cautiousness that we see in corporate customers and by the many products that were bought in the past by consumer customers. I think this is what is the key thing that is behind what we see on the market. When we look at the future, we expect to see recovery on the commercial side and also a strong seasonal performance on the consumer side.
What gets that commercial side going back in terms of sales? What gets that growing in the right direction?
We think there are multiple factors. One is whatever is the evolution from a macro perspective. But then if we think about the specific PC category, Windows refresh is going to be a major driver of that. You know that there is a discontinuance on some of the previous OSs, so that will drive growth. It has happened all the time. There will be some impact on AI PCs, so we think it will be modest in 2024. And then there will be a positive impact on prices, a combination of mix, and also as some of the commodity costs will increase, we will see an increase of prices.
In terms of the AI PC, and this is something you and I have talked a lot about over the past year and a half, what does the ramp of uptake look like on those PCs amongst consumers?
First of all, we continue to be very excited about the value that AI PCs are going to be bringing to customers because they will enable them to do many things that they cannot even dream about doing today. We think that the ramp is going to take about 3 years. Our projection is that 3 years after launch, the penetration will be between 40 and 60%, and therefore the impact in 24 will be smaller, but we will see it gradually growing in 25 and in 26. The key thing is not only going to be the availability of hardware that we will be driving, but also to make sure that applications take advantage of the new functionality that PCs will be having. And this is the work that we are doing, working with many of the key application developers to make sure they understand the possibilities and they integrate them in their solutions.
There's a lot of focus right now, of course, on AI and hardware devices, but how important, Enrique, is it that a lot of companies are making more chips? And how important is domestic manufacturing of chips in the United States to ultimately bring some of these new AI PCs, AI cell phones to market?
We think that during the pandemic, we realized how important resiliency was, and to have a more resilient supply chain, whether it's chips or hardware in general, having a more distributed manufacturing network is important. And this is why we were very supportive of the CHIPS Act, to make sure that we saw chips factories being built again in the US, because we think that for the long term, it's going to be really critical to have those capabilities in the country.
How big or how much of your supply chain is still in China?
China continues to be an important manufacturing platform for us, but again, similar to what we were just talking about chips, we know we need to diversify, and we are increasing our manufacturing capabilities and capacity in other parts of the world. We are doing that in North America, we are doing that in Southeast Asia, in other countries, to make sure that we have a more resilient model going forward.
Pretty interesting week, Enrique, with Google CEO or Alphabet CEO talking about wrong inputs coming out of their AI models, and now they're really scrambling over there to fix it. How concerned are you about the information that an AI PC might put out because of these models?
I think as we look at AI, we need to look at it from two perspectives: the value and the productivity improvements it's going to bring, but at the same time, we need to be careful about the bad information and what impact this may have. And we are really supportive of all the actions that are being taking place in different parts of the world to make sure that regulation is put in place to really make sure that drone behaviors are under control.
What does it feel like, Enrique, to be running a legacy tech company like an HP, and just an iconic American company of PCs and printers at a time where there's so much attention and valuation, our valuations are exploding for a lot of these software players and these chip players and these up-and-coming players in AI that nobody has really heard of. What do you think about that?
I remain very optimistic about the future of the company. I think the changes that we see happening in the technology space, driven by AI, the changes that we continue to see in how people work, driven by hybrid work, are opening a tremendous opportunity for HP, and we are driving strong innovation in all these fronts to really be able to capitalize and to lead some of these changes. So as you know, I have been in the company for a very long time. I am more optimistic now than I have been in the many, many years I have been before.
Enrique, look, you still look 27 years old. You know, I will say that. I will just say that publicly. But actually, before I let you go, on that point, you have seen a lot of cycles. You've been doing this for a good bit. You've lived through the dot-com crash and the financial crisis, and now this AI situation. What's your read on valuations? Do you think investors investing in AI are wrong, or are they just right to be as enthusiastic about some of these companies that in some cases they've never even heard of before?
I think when I look back at the last 30 years, there has been technology discontinuities that have created a lot of value. Think about the dot-com evolution 20 years ago, the mobile changes 10 years ago. I think AI is a similar disruption that is going to enable the creation of significant value that today we really don't understand how it will happen, but I'm sure it's going to happen, and is really what opens the opportunity for all of us to be optimistic about the future.